Unsung Murder Ballads discusses topics of a graphic nature and in graphic detail, and may not be suitable for children under 13. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for returning to Unsung Murder Ballads. This is episode 22, I believe. And
22.
22. It's
That
crazy.
is very impressive.
Yeah, so I am Janus Dead.
I'm Jameson Dead.
And I'm Joyous Dead.
All right. So tonight's episode, I love the way we're doing it now because I know the listeners are going to see the name of the case because they're going to see it when it posts, but you guys have no idea. So I am playing with that more and more now, and I'm really enjoying this part of it. So again,
you get some sick enjoyment out of this, don't you?
I do.
Of course he does.
Yeah, it's almost like I'm a serial killer, but I'm killing you with whatever anticipation.
Killing us with facts.
I was actually going to try to do that like the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Anticipation.
Good bit.
All right. We can't go an episode without some kind of pop culture reference. So
All right, let's see what's on the slab for tonight.
all right. So one night in 2011 in Ohio, a train engineer was going about his usual routine as the train he was in charge of moved along. It was late, about 3 a.m., and it was dark. He watched the tracks ahead for any signs of danger, and that's when he noticed something that, to him, looked like a deer laying on the tracks. He pulled the brakes, but the train did not quite stop in time before going over the object that he had seen. Once at a full stop, he climbs out of the train, and he began walking down to kind of see what it had been and if it had caused any damage to either the train or to the tracks, because he doesn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Where when he finally finds what he had seen, he realizes it's not a deer at all. It's the partially naked body of a young woman.
Oh.
And he has to call the police.
Oh.
Yes. So are you guys ready for what is probably the darkest and most fucked up case we've covered on this podcast yet?
Maybe.
How could I be?
Yeah, so buckle up. This is going to be fucked up.
All right, I'm buckled
boy.
in right now.
And I do want to give an additional trigger warning, as this case, it does involve physical and sexual assaults of both minors and the mentally disabled, as well as torture. And this case is going to expose us all to the worst side of humanity. And I do really want to apologize to anyone listening that's unfamiliar with this story, because it is fucking brutal. So with that said, buckle up, because here we go.
All right, click, buckled.
Okay. Sherry Lynn Brooks was born in 1962 in Fostoria, Ohio. She grew up in an abusive home where she was sexually abused by her own father, who gave her the nickname Sugar Babe.
Oh, God.
Ugh, gross.
What's even more fucked up is, as an adult, she has people refer to her as Sugar Babe.
Ew.
Ooh.
That's like her adult nickname.
Mm.
So,
Oh, God. That made me shudder.
I don't fucking get it. But
Trauma.
Yeah, that's true. But as you're going to see, she's fucking despicable.
Oh,
So-
God.
This is where it comes from, obviously, but it's awful. At the age of 3, she and her 3 siblings were removed from their home and placed into foster care. After her parents divorced in 1978, when Sherry was 16, she returned to live with her mother. Sherry had a large extended family who they were kind of always around. Even when she was in foster care, she was never taken out of the area, so they were all still able to see one another.
Mm-hmm.
She had a cousin named Daniel Bixler, who was just 2 years older than she was. And at some point, the two of them began a sexual relationship together.
I hate that.
What?
Both sides of their family were aware and accepting of it, and even jokingly referred to them as the kissing cousins.
Oh, dear God.
Ew, I hate it.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So on August 9th, 1981, Sherry gave birth to her first child named Scotty. Okay. It's unclear if the cousin is the father of this one.
That was going to be my next question is, please, for the love of everything, tell me that it's not.
It's unclear.
That's
Now-
not reassuring.
And that year, though, in 1981, she did lose custody of the baby for allegations of sexual abuse committed by Sherry.
Oh.
What?
There are some reports saying that someone walked in on her holding the baby up to her face with his penis in her mouth.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I told you guys,
Oh
there's
God.
almost not there's very few sentences I'm going to say that's not just god awful.
Oh my God.
That's a great start.
Yeah. So the baby was placed in the custody of his grandmother. At least there's that. He's taken away. Sometime in the following months, Sherry met a man by the name of Mike Maloney, and the two were married in March of 1982. On August 19th of 1983, Sherry gave birth to her second son named Joshua.
No.
Due to the circumstances surrounding her first child, the Hancock County Children's Services stepped in immediately.
As well, they should have.
Yep. And Sherry and Mike were to be supervised for the safety and care of the new baby. The family had, at this point, they had moved into a trailer, and apparently it was filthy and just completely unsanitary.
Yeah, no place for a baby.
That's a good
Beyond all
start.
the other reasons.
So even though Sherry was eligible for WIC, which is like a food stamp kind of program, and it's actually short for Women, Infants, and Children, she refused to attend several mandatory appointments and subsequently was removed from the program. So without that funding, the baby suffered, obviously. So baby formula is quite expensive and something WIC would have paid for. However, without that, Sherry and Mike settled on feeding the baby regular milk.
No.
Yeah. So Joshua's pediatrician informed Sherry that the milk was dangerous, but she didn't care. So it's likely that the milk caused the baby to have stomach issues, making him what's referred to as a colicky baby. And for anyone who's unaware, colic often begins with sudden, loud, nonstop crying, and colicky babies can be quite difficult. And even if the baby has all its needs met, it's still just constant crying for hours and hours on end. So the constant crying and inability to comfort the baby often leads to high levels of stress and frustration. And it was during one of these particularly stressful nights in November of 1983 that Mike lost his patience and straight out slapped the baby across the face.
What?
Yeah. He then cursed at the baby and threw him to the couch. Just threw him.
Holy shit.
Oh, this is a very young child. This is a tiny baby.
Yes. And Sherry sat in a nearby chair and watched. So fortunately for the baby, another family member had been present and reported the incident to child services.
I was going to say, I thought this was supervised.
Yeah. Well, not supervised by the state at least, but this was another family member.
This should have just been taken away. Hate to say it.
Just wait.
Oh no.
We're not even that far in.
Oh.
So Sherry admitted to not intervening when they showed up. They did question her, and she did say Mike slapped the baby several times, but he had done so because the baby was making him anxious. So baby Joshua was removed from their home and placed in protective custody in December of 1983. Mike and Sherry continued to be supervised by Children's Services, perhaps with the hope that one day they could turn their lives around and get custody of their baby back. However, they did absolutely nothing to change, and Joshua was permanently taken from them and put in foster care.
Oh, poor kid.
Joshua was adopted, and he did grow up under a completely different name. So there's that at least.
Yeah.
Now, Sherry hadn't given up on having children, though.
Come on, bitch.
And in 1984, she gave birth to her third son, Michael Jr. Once again, allegations of abuse and neglect were reported, and Michael Jr. was removed from their custody when he was only a few months old.
Not soon enough.
No. In 1986, Sherry gave birth to her first daughter.
Are
Maria.
you kidding me?
Come on.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Now, with Maria, Sherry was entirely different as a mother. She was attentive and caring. Maria was kept clean and well fed and reportedly dressed in frilly dresses. According to family and friends, Sherry was obsessed with her baby girl. Now, while some things were getting better, the cycle of abuse had not exactly stopped with the arrival of a baby girl. On the day before Easter in 1986, Sherry's dad called her sister Wanda to inform her that he was taking baby Maria to the hospital.
What?
Maria was bleeding from the vagina.
Oh, dear God.
no.
According to Sherry's mother, quote, someone had raped our little Maria. When Sherry changed her diaper, it was all bloody down there, unquote.
Oh, God.
Holy hell.
That night, Maria was treated and returned back to the care of her parents.
Are you shitting me?
No.
That seems like that's a mandated report.
You would
And
think,
like the
well,
police would have to be called.
This is 1986, so maybe not a mandated report.
Horrific. Damn.
I
You
mean,
really
this-
grew up in the dark ages, huh?
You have no idea. This is 20 years after the Sylvia Likens thing, but it is a different state.
All right.
So this may not have had the same mandatory reportings that
Fuck.
Indiana did.
Fucked. If you're
Yeah.
worse than Indiana, that's a dark place.
Yeah, this is Ohio.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is fucking Ohio. So Sherry was required to make an appointment to see the doctor the next day, and she agreed. And that doctor immediately contacted the police. Now,
As he should. Thank
As
you,
he
mandated
should.
report.
Exactly. Now, that night, Sherry told her mother that she needed to take baby Maria for the night. Her mother,
What? Huh?
her mother
Okay.
didn't understand why until the police arrived at Sherry's home looking to
Oh.
take custody of Maria.
Well, that makes sense.
When police were not able to find her, Sherry refused to tell them where the baby was. However, it didn't take long for police to figure it all out, and they went, and by 6 a.m. the next day, Maria was permanently removed from Sherry's custody.
Yep. I mean, that's not doesn't take a real case of sleuthing to figure that one out.
One would hope not. Now, it was never determined whether it was Mike or Sherry who had assaulted Maria.
Really? They never figured it out?
Neither of them ever confessed to it.
Wow.
And to be honest, you would want to assume it was Mike, but Sherry's fucked up.
I mean, we
So-
already know that she sexually abused her other newborn child.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I can't even.
women are capable of abuse.
Agreed. I just can't fathom. Yeah. I just can't fathom it. To me, it's all so fucked up. But
It's yeah.
now
Ooh.
Sherry would never see Maria again.
Fucking
so-
good.
Yeah. There is that silver lining. Now, it was reported that Sherry was inconsolable and never the same after losing Maria. So what is she?
Bitch.
So
Cry
what
me
it-
a river.
No sympathy.
So what do you think she does next?
Has another
Has
kid.
another one.
She tries to have another baby girl. And she does, and this one she names after herself, Sherry.
Odd for a woman to do.
I know, right?
But I guess never
Yeah.
mind. Continue the story.
Well, she's clearly a narcissist. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So-
clearly. I mean,
yeah.
she only wants a child that's in her image.
exactly. She wants exactly. She wants a baby girl that is all hers.
Yep.
So just like baby Maria, little Sherry was well cared for, but the abuses don't just stop. And before she was 6 months old, baby Sherry was permanently removed from the home.
At this
Not-
point, how are they not taking them at birth?
That's my question. Is there a legal means of saying you have to have a tubal, have your tubes tied?
No, because that gets into a place of
Oh, that's
eugenics
true.
that is not
That's true.
good. But there is a legal means of removing a child as soon as it is born because it is being born into unsafe circumstances like that.
Right.
And maybe that just exists now, but I know
Yeah.
that exists.
Yeah, the whole thing's crazy to me. Sherry needs to stop having children, but
Yes.
she's not going to.
Man.
Neither Joshua, Maria, or Sherry would ever see their birth mother again. So there is that. Scotty does play a role later, not so much in this case, but he is back in her life at some point in the future.
Poor kid.
Right? Yeah, not something I would want to go back to.
Absolutely the fuck not.
So Sherry and Mike divorced in 1993, but not before she gave birth to a sixth child.
Jesus fucking
How long did this
Christ.
one last before it was taken away?
Well, hold on. Give me a moment.
Oh.
So on June 6, 1991, Kevin Jr. was born. Now note, her husband's name was Mike. It is unknown whether Sherry and Mike were separated when the baby was conceived or if Sherry was having an affair at the time. But Sherry and Kevin Sr. would eventually get married.
Who's marrying this bitch?
You know, you should see the images of her. She's not even remotely like pretty. Like she's like, I mean, granted, by the time you see, like, there's a documentary out there called Goodnight Sugar Babe.
Ooh.
And it's on this
Yeah.
story. Yeah. In the documentary, she, you know, I'm going to explain why, but she's wheelchair bound, but she's got this like nasty, dirty black hair, like maybe 4 teeth in her whole mouth.
Oh, dear God.
It is the worst of the worst. Like, it is disgusting to me. And yet she has not only the ability to keep having children like this, but that everybody seems to just follow her lead on shit.
Right. And it's like, man, some of us can't even get married once. The fuck?
Yeah, okay. If you want to get married once, I guess.
No, I'm not talking about myself. You know, just
Okay,
in
the way you
general.
said that, I was like, whoa. Like, I didn't see that.
No,
coming.
you know that ain't me, but
So Kevin Jr. would be nicknamed Punky. And that is how I'm actually going to refer to him going forward, because it's how everybody in this case refers to him. Okay. And it just kind of keeps it easy. If I do mention the father, calling him Kevin and the younger one Punky just makes more sense.
yeah.
So Sherry doted on baby Punky, and surprisingly, she was allowed to keep him. And
What?
I don't know why. She was allowed to keep him.
Well, that's a major flaw in the system.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because of the new husband or what have you, but she was allowed to keep Punky. And on June 18th, 1992, she gave birth to another boy named Zachary.
No.
Yeah, Zachary Curtis Brooks. And on July 26th of 1993, she gave birth to, and I'm not kidding, Garth Brooks.
Oh,
Fuck up. Obviously a
God.
different one.
Obviously.
Okay.
By 1993, Garth Brooks actually had released a cover of the Kiss song Hard Luck Woman. So I have a lot of respect.
Oh,
for Garth
Kiss
Brooks.
facts.
Hey, you know, what can you do? I have Kiss tattoos. I used to love the band.
Okay, but how many kids is this now? 7, 8?
That was number 8. And in 1997, she would give birth to number 9, which was Chuck Alfred Brooks.
Girl, aren't you fucking tired?
You'd think so. So yeah, by 1997, she has 9 children, but only the last 4 boys are in her custody. And I have no idea how she managed to pull that
4?
off.
How
Yeah.
did she get to keep 4?
I don't know.
She must have learned how to trick cheap CPS by now.
Something. Punky, the oldest of these 4, had a violent streak in him. And as a teen, he claimed, now I don't know how true this is because I don't know much about this particular gang, but he claimed that he was a member of the Crips. And for those who don't know, especially in the 90s, the Bloods and the Crips were 2 rival street gangs from LA. And they eventually have a nationwide, like satellite groups. So Punky is claiming that he's a member of the Crips.
Me and the Ohio Crips.
I call bullshit.
It's tough to say, especially because they're white. They're not part of the African American community that's typically associated with Bloods and Crips either. Now,
Okay,
I don't.
You're in Ohio if you're trying to start a gang.
Yeah, and you're in like a small town. The town's called Findlay, and it's really not. I mean, it's a shithole, but it's not like it's Cleveland.
I think the group he's a part of is the Children of the Corn, maybe.
Certainly have the teeth for it.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
So allegedly, Punky was the only person that was known that Sherry was afraid of.
Oh, well, good.
So there is that. And according to family and friends, Punky apparently ruled that house.
Wow.
So-
And you've had this fucking domineering, psychotic mother who's abused so many people and you're being run by your child. That's so curious.
It's weird. But despite how much love she had for him, he was taken from her as well, just not by the government this time.
Oh.
On Sunday, July 4th, 2010, at 9:53 p.m., 32-year-old Eric Calvin of Findlay was driving north on CR 220. Punky, 19 at the time, was also walking north on CR 220. Calvin's vehicle struck Punky with the passenger side of the car.
Ooh.
Oh.
Punky was taken to the hospital where he subsequently passed away. Sherry was notified of the accident about 20 minutes after Punky had been taken to the hospital, but by the time she and Kevin had arrived, he was already dead. Sherry wanted revenge.
Oh, of course she did.
And she quickly sought it, ignoring any actual facts surrounding the accident. So that
On
night,
brand.
Yeah, perfectly on brand for her. So that night, Punky had been walking with his girlfriend, Heather. The two had gone out to buy heroin, as you do.
As one does, yes.
It was also worth noting that Sherry didn't like Heather. Punky and Heather had been dating for several years, and they even had a baby together. But the baby was a boy, and allegedly Sherry resented Heather for that.
Well, that's weird.
Yeah, she wants a girl. That's her thing.
Oh, right. She would have wanted her grandchild to be a girl.
Correct.
That makes sense. She had a lot of boys for someone who really just wanted a girl.
Funny because it sounds like my sister. She has a ton of boys and only 2 girls.
Keep popping them out to get what you want, I guess.
I guess so. But apparently that night, Punky had been the one walking closest to the street when he was struck by the car. And Sherry started to convince herself that Heather had pushed him in front of the car. She then even started believing that Heather might have even have paid the driver to hit him and kill him on purpose.
Oh my God. Talk about delusional. Holy crap.
Yeah. So during a memorial gathering at their home, Sherry spotted Heather and quickly leaned over to another relative named Marcy and said, quote, "I need you to do me a favor. I need you to beat up Heather," unquote. Marcy wasted no time, and Heather was soon on the ground, getting punched in the face, being dragged down the front porch steps by her hair, where the beating continued on the ground.
Oh, God.
Onlookers reportedly cheered Marcy on, shouting, "Take her to the curb and curb stomp her."
Ah!
Now, for anyone who doesn't know, curb stomping is a form of assault where the victim's mouth is opened and forcefully placed on the curb like they are biting it, and then they are stomped on from behind, either in the back of the head or the neck. It's actually,
That's
usually
a death sentence, right? Yeah,
yes.
okay.
This was shown in the movie American History X. When Edward Norton's character did that. Yeah.
Okay, I was going to say, I think why can I visualize this so easily? Yeah, that makes sense.
That's why. Fortunately for Heather, Marcy didn't listen to the mob and instead continued beating her in the face until she was covered in blood and her nose was badly broken. So at least she's alive, right? I guess.
Ugh.
When she was finished, she screamed at her, "That's what you get for messing with my family because you killed Punky."
Jesus Christ.
So Sherry had Punky cremated, but instead of burying him or spreading his ashes, she created this little shrine and had his ashes placed on a shelf in her living room. She added one of his t-shirts, some crypt paraphernalia, even a spot where she could leave him his favorite candy bars as an offering. Yeah, she's fucked up.
Yeah.
Now, at this point, Sherry was also making quite a reputation for herself around town. She was selling methamphetamines. She was a bully, a manipulator, and a pathological liar. Somehow,
she's got the laundry list.
Yeah, right. It's, again, absolutely blows my mind. And the interesting thing right here is at this point, other people are starting to refer to her and her little group, but mostly her as Charles Manson.
Oh, God.
Yeah, she's literally being compared to Charles Manson.
Wow, she must have been one twisted fuck then.
When you watch this documentary, the whole time I was watching it, I was like, why is she being interviewed from her living room and not a fucking jail cell? But we'll get to that. It should be noted that Punky wasn't Sherry's only violently prone son. Apparently,
That's surprised. I mean, they're probably all fucking abused. So.
Well, that's just it. All 3 of them, Zachary, Garth, and Chuck, were all of them had violent streaks.
Yeah.
But even with 4 growing boys, Sherry still wanted that baby girl.
Don't tell me she hits 10.
No, it's worse.
What? How does it get worse?
I have a guess, and I'll wait to see if it's right.
Okay.
Yeah, take a guess. Take a guess.
I think it's kidnapping.
Oh, no. That was an interesting take, but worse, though, in a lot of ways.
Jesus Christ.
So Sherry began pressuring her son, Garth, to get his 15-year-old girlfriend, Gina, pregnant.
What?
Yep. So when Gina did eventually get pregnant, Sherry opened her home to her. This filthy, disgusting home, which I should add, and I probably bring it up again later. They had like chickens running around and a pig that lived inside the house.
What?
That, yeah, they had a
Does she
pig.
live in a barn?
No, it's a fucking normal house on a normal street. There's a
And
pig.
there are-
Okay.
Yeah, this
Well,
pig.
sometimes people have pet pigs, but like chickens running around in the house, no.
Well, the chickens were, I believe, were kept in a coop, and we're gonna get to that later. But the
Jesus.
pig wasn't really cleaned up after. It would root, it would shit and piss. It was disgusting. And even in the documentary, and when you see some of the videos or see the images, that house is just absolutely appalling.
Right. And I guess maybe it was the better option because his 15-year-old, right? Probably getting kicked out of her house.
Who knows, to be fair.
Right. Like, we don't know.
But within months, Gina realized the mistake she had made because Sherry was controlling and she didn't treat Gina particularly well. So when Gina had had enough, she decided to get the fuck out of Dodge. But before she was able to do so, she miscarried the baby.
Oh.
Sherry was furious, but Gina, being a bit smarter, got the fuck out and fled several states away and stayed with family.
Good. I'm so glad you got out.
Yeah.
Oh God. No.
After the loss of Gina's baby, Sherry hatched a new plan. Her 13-year-old son, Zachary,
Oh dear God.
was friends with a 19-year-old girl named Vera Jo Riegle. Sherry had actually known Vera since she was a baby. Vera's mother, Verna, and her father, Willard, lived in the same apartment complex as Sherry and Mike when they had Maria. Now, when Maria was removed from Sherry's custody, Sherry had turned her attention to Vera, baby Vera, often asking to spend time with the girl and even babysit her. And Sherry had grown so insistent that Verna eventually had to tell her to back off, that Vera was not her daughter, that, she was her daughter, well, not Sherry's daughter. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, to me, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know how much they knew about the circumstances of Maria being removed, but if I know someone had a child removed from their home, they're not fucking babysitting my kid.
Exactly.
You serious?
So while Vera was a good baby, she had actually been born with developmental issues, being diagnosed with ADHD and having a below average IQ. If that wasn't hard enough on Vera, when she was 11, she was raped by her own father.
This is
Why?
Cursed
Why are these
apartment
people
building.
sick like this?
There's a lot of people sick like this.
Yeah, it's depressing how many people
absurd.
are sick like this. You're good. I'm going to shove more tacos down my face.
I might keep that little clip in there. That'd be funny.
Let them know I'm eating tacos.
However, Vera's father would be jailed for what he did to her. So there's that at least. Despite all that, Vera was quite easygoing, but she was eager to please and she was very easily manipulated. She would never develop past the mental maturity of a 12-year-old.
Ooh, that's rough.
Yeah. So some reports keep saying 8 to 12. I went with 12 because, she's making some decisions that are a bit more mature than an 8-year-old. So, but it's 8 to 12.
Right. And those are usually just like diagnostic criteria. So they have to put a range because not every 8-year-old's the same and not every 12-year-old's the same,
Oh, that's honestly, I didn't know that. That's pretty cool to know. I always wondered why it seemed so like wide and vague, but that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So the Brooks family and the Riegle family kept in touch over the years. And by the time Vera was 19, they were only living a few blocks away from each other. So now here we are. Vera Jo's 19, and she is manipulated into a relationship with the 13-year-old Zachary Brooks.
Oh, Jesus Christ. That's nasty.
Well, and here's the thing. Like, yes, she had the mental capacity of a 12-year-old, and he's 13, but that's still not okay.
No. Absolutely in no way is that okay.
But exactly what would be okay? If she's in a relationship with a 19-year-old, then he's the one that's sort of fucked up. Like, I hate to say it, the more I thought about this, there is not a good combination for Vera and romance.
Well, there is if she was properly supported and if she were to someday, I mean, like, there's lots of people who have high support needs who can end up having really fulfilling relationships. It just has to be someone who's in a similar relation or similar situation to them, like
Right, like another
someone.
person with the same disability.
Right. And it might not be, if she doesn't continue to develop past that mental age, it might never be appropriate for her to have a sexual relationship, but it might be appropriate for her to have, like a romantic relationship. Sure.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. I sat there and racked my brain and I thought, there's no way she can have a real adult, like get married, have kids, that sort of thing, if she's still in the mindset of a 12-year-old. So I couldn't come
and
up with
it also probably wouldn't be what she would want.
Well, we're going to get into that.
Oh. Well, it's like at this point, we're in the point of no consent.
Yeah,
So
this is awful.
This is disgusting, and there's no consent. There's a minor involved, and she is, mentally a minor. It's disturbing and disgusting.
So Sherry continuously encouraged Zachary to invite Vera over. The more time Vera spent with the Brooks family, the more time Sherry had to convince her that she loved her and that Vera's own mother did not.
That's just cruel.
Mm-hmm. Sherry discovered that due to her disability, Vera was actually receiving Social Security disability checks.
Oh, God.
So Sherry's efforts to win Vera over increased sevenfold after that.
Of course.
Naturally, she wants the paycheck.
It benefits her.
And soon Vera moved out of her family home and into the Brooks home. And all Vera had to do was sign her disability checks over to Sherry for rent. This was $700 a month. So Zachary, Sherry, and the rest of the family treated Vera Jo kindly when she first moved in with them. Living with this new family, Vera really wanted to please them. Vera ended up doing a majority of the cleaning around the house and even found herself taking care of Sherry. Now, I've said this before, but this house was fucking filthy. And by all accounts, I mean, as I said, I talked about the pig that was living inside. They didn't really clean up after themselves. And Sherry herself was diabetic and had a lot of pain and issues with her feet. She was overweight and she was wheelchair bound. Vera was tasked with caring for Sherry's feet. She would remove the bandages. Yeah, she would remove the bandages. She would give her foot rubs, and then she would rebandage them. But if Vera made any wrong move or applied too much pressure, she would be struck. Now, different reports say it was like with a stick or a back scratcher, whatever. I'm going to assume it's whatever Sherry had at hand.
Yeah, probably.
So after about a year, Vera had been completely cut off from all outside influences, just like a cult. Her cell phone was taken away and she wasn't allowed to visit her family.
Oh, that's really bad.
Sherry had told her that her mother wanted nothing to do with her. And in fact, there are some reports that Sherry had even started rumors with other people that Vera's mother had died.
What the fuck?
So on the occasions that Vera was outside the house and saw someone she knew, she would basically hide. She would sometimes maybe wave real quick, but then go rushing away or giving no response at all.
That's sad.
Can you imagine?
I'm sorry. I need to voice because that's just awful. You shouldn't have to live like that. I mean, even if you are in that kind of environment.
Now, just imagine a 12-year-old living that way, because that's essentially what this is.
Right. No, that's just miserable.
It is. It's awful. However, Vera Jo would soon find out that she's pregnant.
No.
Oh, boy.
So Sherry, of course, is overjoyed, but soon she and everyone in the house began to treat Vera much worse.
Come on. All they wanted was a baby. What the fuck?
Yeah, she was basically treated like she was no longer welcomed or loved, and instead she was treated like a slave.
That doesn't even make sense. It feels like they're getting what they want out of her. Or, I mean, it's really Sherry. It's really probably no one else in the house.
Well, the rest of them follow Sherry's lead.
Right.
And, of course, Vera Jo is going to have a baby girl.
Oh.
No.
Yeah.
Come on.
So as her due date approached, Sherry became more possessive and unstable. Vera was nothing more than an incubator for her baby.
Is that what you told her?
I don't know if she said that to her directly, but that's basically how Sherry behaved.
Mm-hmm.
Vera wasn't allowed to pick out any of the baby's furniture or clothing. She wasn't allowed to decide anything, and that included the name of the baby.
Oh, that's creepy and fucking weird.
Yep. Sherry informed her that the baby would be named Willadine.
Oh my God, what an awful name.
Excuse me, what?
Willadine. Yeah.
I hate it. Thanks.
So with Willadine due in December, Sherry stepped up her plans to take this baby as her own. In September, she told Zachary that he needed to give up his parental rights and sign them over to her, Sherry. And of course, he agreed.
Of course. She's running the show.
Sherry then forced Vera to drink several bottles of castor oil to hopefully force her into labor so that, and I kid you not, the baby would be born on Sherry's birthday.
Oh my God.
Holy shit.
No. No.
Now, castor oil has been used for centuries and has a long history of serving as a homeopathic remedy, one of which is to induce labor. Now, with anything, there are risks, and the dosage of this is typically about 4 tablespoons. Okay, that's how much you would take to induce labor. However, Sherry being Sherry, she bought 3 bottles and on November 3rd, mixed them with orange juice and made Vera drink all of it. Vera became incredibly sick and she went into labor just as Sherry hoped. However, not soon enough because the baby was born early, but on November 4th, the day after Sherry's birthday.
She's livid, isn't she?
Well, it's nearly 1 month before her due date, and I think at this point, Sherry's just kind of happy to have a baby girl.
That makes sense.
So baby Willadine was born underweight and had difficulty breathing and had heart problems. She spent the first few weeks of her life in ICU, or NICU for, I think it's natal intensive care.
Yeah, it's a NICU, yeah.
Yeah. So Sherry managed to still have complete control of the baby even while they were in the hospital. She told nurses not to take the baby to Vera, but to keep her in the nursery. She didn't like the nurses to hold the baby and always told them to put her down. And when Vera had the baby, Cheryl was there telling her what to do and what not to do. Now, things would not get better for Vera and Willadine once they returned to the Brooks home. Despite everything.
Sad.
Yeah. Despite everything, though, Vera persevered, fighting to be a good mother. She was attentive, affectionate, and spent as much time with Willadine as she could. But in Sherry's mind, Willadine was hers. Sherry would continue to beat Vera or encourage Zachary to do it. Vera was beaten nearly every single day. She was secluded from everyone in the family, but never actually allowed to leave the house at this point. If Vera made any move to leave, Sherry threatened Willadine's life. Calls were made to family services on Vera's behalf by people who knew the living situation in the Brooks family home. Example, they had no running water. They literally used buckets to piss and shit in.
Oh,
Jesus fucking Christ.
crap.
Yeah. And that pig living in the house, they weren't cleaning up after it.
Ew. How do you fucking live like that? I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't know. But when the police came to the house, Vera Jo lied to them, likely forced to do so by Sherry, much like Sylvia Likens. Yeah.
Yep, makes sense.
Now, Sherry also kept Willadine in her bedroom with her. Like, that's where the baby slept.
Oh, I'm so worried.
Now, the beatings for Vera escalated, and Sherry decided that Vera was only allowed to eat leftovers off the plate of others. So there were
I feel like we've seen this story.
Yeah.
I feel like this is just going in a path of a story that we've seen, and
yeah, that's too many times. Yeah.
Too many times. Breaks my heart.
So one night, after 3 days of being denied any food, Vera was so hungry that she made a horrible mistake.
Uh-oh.
Though at this point, Punky had been dead for 7 months, Sherry continued to keep his little shrine in place, including his little spot for the offering of a candy bar. And desperate for food, Vera removed the candy bar and she ate it.
Oh no.
That's not going to go well for her.
Unfortunately, there was a witness. Somehow, Gina, remember Gina, the girlfriend of Zachary, not Zachary,
The 15-year-old?
yeah, the boyfriend of that, the girlfriend of that one who miscarried.
Yeah.
She had returned and had started working her way back into Sherry's good graces.
What the crazy? Why would you do that?
You ready for the why? She was desperately trying to become Zachary's new girlfriend, the father of Willadine.
Oh my God.
I hate it.
What?
So
Why?
much.
No.
Essentially, she wanted to replace Vera Jo.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it's believed that Gina went straight to Sherry with the news of Vera's desecration of Punky's memorial. Vera was beaten, left with 2 black eyes, a broken nose, and a multitude of welts and bruises. She was then forced to sleep in a closet with the pig, forced to eat food straight out of the garbage, as well as feces and blood.
Ooh.
Okay, so yep. See where this is
No.
going.
Yep. There's even a report that while helping clean out the chicken coop, Vera Jo had dropped, like they basically had a tarp over it and there were like rocks or bricks or something to help keep the tarp down. And Vera had dropped one of the bricks and it hit Sherry's foot.
Oh no.
And this resulted in yet another severe beating. Now, I don't go too much into it, but in the documentary, they talk about how basically every male in that house was also sexually assaulting Vera on a fairly regular basis.
Poor thing.
So soon, Sherry and Zachary began planning on how to get rid of Vera without losing Willadine.
Oh.
Some of those plans included maybe they'd overdose her on drugs and then leave her body tied near the train tracks.
Oh no.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no.
Now, they had a cousin, Danny Bixler Jr., the son of Sherry's kissing cousin.
Oh God. Yep.
He had just been released from prison like 3 weeks before, and he kind of moved in with Sherry.
Oh my God.
Naturally.
He was a self-professed killer, and he even had a teardrop tattoo on his face, like under his eye. Right?
Oh my God.
And he had a 17-year-old girlfriend named Nicole Peters, and she wanted to experience the euphoria of killing someone just like her boyfriend. She wanted to earn her teardrop tattoo.
What a cast of motherfucking characters. Jesus Christ.
It's the worst group of people ever. Like the worst of humanity.
Literally doesn't get much worse.
So Sherry knew that Daniel and Nicole were the perfect pair to help her pull off her plan to get rid of Vera Jo. Over the next 4 days, Vera Jo was basically tortured. She was beaten sporadically during the day. Chucky, the youngest son, he locked a padlock to the end of a belt. And everyone seemed to love this. And they all used it to beat Vera Jo.
Oh my God.
Oh.
They would stomp on her head and just beat the shit out of her.
Good.
Now, Nicole was the 17-year-old girlfriend of Danny here. She's basically realizing just how sadistic she is. And she was happily joining into the abuse against Vera with a smile on her face.
Disgusting.
How twisted are these fucking people?
Beyond.
Oh, it's
So beyond twisted.
just wait. She would become sexually aroused during the beating of Vera, so much so that her and Danny had to stop and go have sex and then come back and continue.
Oh.
What the actual fuck?
Yeah, the worst of humanity right here.
Oh, that's beyond the worst. That's no.
Not fucking humanity anymore.
Yeah.
The week of March 20th, Sherry began to joke, quote unquote joke, about killing Vera. According to her son, Michael, Sherry wanted to drug Vera with sleeping pills, and Zachary wanted to get her high on pot, mixing the two substances together and then just let her go walk on the railroad tracks at night. Eventually, they assumed she would fall over and just lay in the middle of the tracks, where there would be no way for a conductor to stop his train in time. Now,
Right. It's not.
yeah,
I don't know.
right.
It's a weird fucking plan. There's a lot of there's a lot of holes in that plan, but whatever.
Exactly. Shannon, Michael's wife, reported that Sherry then said that they needed to cut her up and then put her on the tracks. Vera was sitting in the room with them. And
They're talking
Sherry,
about this while she's sitting there?
yes. And
What?
Sherry allegedly looked over at her, waved and smiled, and then returned and resumed the discussion.
Okay. Is she just like so punch drunk that she doesn't understand? Or like does she not comprehend that they're talking about her? Like
She has the mental state of an 8 to 12-year-old, so I
Yeah.
don't know.
but even
And she's deeply traumatized and she's probably fully dissociating.
Probably.
okay, yeah, I guess
Like
so.
she is not there. She's physically there. She is not mentally there. She is wherever else she can be to keep herself mentally safe. She was in a deep state of trauma.
Yeah, I would say so. So Gina claimed that Sherry said if she did get smashed by the train, that there would be no way to identify her by fingerprints because she would be, quote, like hamburger meat, unquote.
That's just a lovely thing to compare people to.
Yeah. Well, Sherry's husband, Kevin, he was about to actually go on trial for, I think it was drug charges, and he was going to be incarcerated. Yeah, he knew that was going to be the outcome. And during all this conversation, he asked them to wait until he was already in prison so that he would have an alibi if things went sideways for their family.
Oh my God.
So on March 20th, Sherry told Zachary that Vera was actually the one responsible for Punky's death, telling him and Danny, telling him and Danny that Vera pushed him in front of that car.
Insane.
And she wanted them to avenge Punky's death by killing Vera. And of course, Zachary and Danny both exploded into rage. On March 24th, Sherry instigated a beating and sexual assault on Vera with a toothbrush. Now,
holy shit.
So by March 25th, Vera was noticeably weaker. She had been beaten, starved, and had difficulty walking at this point. That same day, Danny and Nicole followed Vera into the bathroom and just stabbed her in the leg. According to Vera's aunt, Wanda Smith, Sherry said that she took her finger and stuck it in the hole where Vera had been stabbed. And later, Sherry would actually confirm that. When Vera begged for food, the 14-year-old Chucky brought in dog shit and forced her to eat it.
No, she's not going to live long like that.
On March 16th, 2011, Zachary, Danny, and Nicole forced Vera Jo to put on her shoes and take a walk with them. Vera Jo cried and refused, but had no other choice. Many people suspect that she actually understood what was about to happen. Vera Jo walked out of the home and said, "Good night, sugar babe," to Sherry. The group walked Vera Jo to the railroad near their home, where they began to relentlessly stab her with a kitchen knife. The knife was so dull, however, that it had trouble cutting through the fabric of her clothing, and it wasn't really penetrating her skin. The group then forced her to take off her clothes, and they stabbed her again and again and again. When they knew she was close to death, the group tried to slit her throat, and then they laid her sideways across the railroad tracks and left her alone to die. They then walked away, tossing the knife and her clothing into a nearby lake. The group knew that a train would be there soon, and it hoped it would run her over and turn her into, quote unquote, hamburger meat. However, with the last of her strength, Vera Jo curled into a fetal position and died alone, in pain, on those railroad tracks. It was this last act that essentially allowed investigators to be able to solve this case. When the train came, even though it tried to stop, Vera's body was curled up and low enough that the train didn't actually strike her body.
Oh, wow. Just went
Holy
over.
crud, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Literally had the clearance of less than an inch between the bottom of the train and the top of her body.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So she was essentially preserved for an autopsy and forensic analysis. Police were called, and Vera Jo was eventually identified thanks to camera footage from a nearby store showing her walking towards the tracks with her killers. The police then questioned the Brooks family. Sherry tried to blame the murder on Vera Jo's quote-unquote black boyfriend,
Come on. What fucking
What now?
boyfriend?
Yeah,
Who?
yeah. I mean, obviously he didn't exist, but this is what she was telling police. Now, police found a ton of evidence in the home, including Nicole's bloodied T-shirt, a belt, and a lock of Vera's hair. And that belt, we're talking about the lock, like that one.
Oh.
Danny and Nicole did quickly confess to the murder and were taken into custody. They told police that Sherry gave Vera Jo drugs and had talked them into killing the girl, even giving them instructions on how to carry it out. Danny and Nicole both took plea deals. Danny was sentenced to 40 years to life for murder, and Nicole received 23 years in prison for conspiracy to commit murder. Zachary was also arrested and sentenced to 4 years in prison for obstruction of justice.
That's it.
That's it. Sherry
Whoa.
was not charged with a crime in Vera Jo's murder.
Are you?
What? How?
Not charged. Couldn't prove a thing.
Oh.
The day after Vera Jo's murder, Sherry did try to get Zachary's parental rights reinstated, but the day that Child Protective Services arrived to conduct a check to make sure he was fit to be a parent, Willadine cried and screamed and wanted nothing to do with Zachary. So they were like, we'll come back another day. Yeah. But on the second time they came back, Zachary didn't even bother to show up. So Willadine was taken from that house. However, Sherry and one of her other sons were eventually convicted of selling prescription drugs in 2014. Sherry, at this point, also spent 10 days in jail for, quote, contact with a minor, unquote.
What the? I'm so mad. This case fucking sucks, dude.
I told you.
No, you were right. You weren't exaggerating when you said this was the fucking worst.
This was the darkest case we've done. Yeah. In 2015, Sherry was sentenced to 40 months in federal prison for drug trafficking, but she was released from prison in 2019.
How fucked is it that our government takes drug trafficking more seriously than sexual abuse of minors?
Yeah. I don't exactly know what contact with a minor meant. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? There's no details. That's just what it was called. We all know.
I don't know, but we know there was documented sexual abuse with past children, her own fucking children. None of that resulted.
Yeah, her own infant children.
Her own infant children. And none of that resulted in shit. And it's what? Selling a prescription drug that is what sends her to fucking prison.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sorry for all the expletives in today's episode, listeners. I am angry.
I am angry, Dad.
Hello, I'm angry, Dad. Yes, I have lots to say. I'm fucking angry.
It's totally warranted, though. I mean, it's just absolutely sick and heinous behavior.
Yeah, it's this is the worst. Like I knew I had to cover this case, but I also know that it's just so dark. And I remember messaging you, Joyous, the other day about it took until page 12 to have a positive statement. And that was Vera Jo's like invigoration about being a mother after giving birth. You know, that was the only good statement in this entire thing.
Please tell me it's almost over.
It is almost over. So at this point, there are some reports that say Sherry is out of prison, and there are some that say she's currently serving time for an unspecified crime. I don't know which is true, but either way, fuck Sherry Brooks. As far as Vera Jo's daughter, Willadine was adopted by a loving family. Now, one final note. The day after Vera's murder, police searched the riverbank and they did find her clothes. Inside the pocket of her favorite purple hoodie, police found a note that read, and this was handwritten by Vera, that read, quote, I love you, Willadine. You are a good little baby girl to us. I am glad to be your mommy, and I am glad that I had you on November 4th at 4:16 a.m., 6 pounds, 2 ounces, 19 inches long. Mommy loves you. The note was given to Willadine's adopted family to be given to her sometime in the future when or if they feel the time is right. And that is the fucked up case of Vera Jo Riegle.
Holy hell.
That was fucking rough.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I warned you.
You did. You warned us, and we warned our listeners. So, listeners, so sorry you had to sit through all that. But let's take a moment and honor Vera's memory and wish the best for Willadine, and hope that her, those early days of her life don't affect her for the rest of her life. And I hope she gets to live a peaceful and happy life with her adopted family.
Agreed. And just like the last episode, this baby at this point in time is only about 10 years old.
Well, wherever she is, I wish her all the best in the world.
Yeah, it's so just tragic. And hopefully
just to come from a line of tragedy.
Yeah, like
just...
and what blows me away is I talked about that documentary, Good Night Sugar Babe,
Yeah.
And the family they're free and they're being interviewed.
Which
disgusting.
Is absolutely absurd.
It blows my fucking mind. And like you'd have to watch it to just like, now that you know the story, if you watch it, you just want to punch your TV. Like,
I want to fucking find him. How is nobody vigilante justice in the situation?
We are not encouraging anybody to do that, for the record.
No, I'm not encouraging anyone. I'm just saying it's kind of surprising that no one has.
And the thing is, I looked up some stuff and it does sound like the Brooks family is considered to be kind of dangerous in that area. Because I don't think a lot of people don't want anything to do with them. And those that do, like, there's a lot of violence there. So I don't know that anyone would necessarily take that route because, I mean, unless you could get them one by one, you're fighting that whole family. That could be like a standoff.
Yeah, it's not.
And if they know,
fucking good.
And if they know who you are, you could end up starting like another Hatfield and McCoy kind of thing.
Oh, Jesus.
God.
Last thing we need.
Right. Although there were a lot of cases. I don't know if you guys ever paid attention to this kind of thing. Right around the time of the Hatfield McCoy thing, there were a lot of families that were at war with each other in that general region around that same time.
No, I actually know nothing about that. Yeah.
Oh, maybe I'll cover that case. It's like a historical. It's still this. I mean, it's murder because they're
right.
Not...
It sounds familiar. It sounds like I've like seen some show called that or something. I like know nothing about it.
I don't know if it's still on Netflix, but there is a 3-episode series called The Hatfields and McCoys.
I love a miniseries.
It's Bill Paxton and I can't remember his name now. He played Clark Kent's father in Man of Steel, Henry Cavill's father in Man of Steel.
Oh, love Henry Cavill. Why can't it be him?
I can't remember his name. But anyway, that little miniseries was really good and inspired me to go out and get a book that was written by one of the descendants of the Hatfields or the McCoys. I can't remember which. And she did an amazing amount of research into it. And it's nuts just how much over the course of many years those two families just kept murdering each other. And absolutely crazy. Maybe we'll cover it someday. So
I'd love that. All right. If we're going to cover it, I'm going to stop reading the Wikipedia article. If one thing about me, you say anything, I'm on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
I'm reading about it.
It's all good.
And then all of a sudden, 6 hours later, you're learning everything you need to know about it.
Yeah. But
for real.
Yeah.
The deep dive.
It's an amazing story. And in fact, when the first time I traveled to Nashville, I did stop in West Virginia to go to places that had things to do with that historical moment. The Hatfields.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was really interesting. It was a little disappointing because there was one town that boasted it had like this. So they have like these flood walls to stop the water from the river from rising and whatever. And they were like, yeah, we've this etched mural of the Hatfields and the McCoy feud. So I purposely stopped in that town and I was kind of disappointed by the etchings. It wasn't what I was expecting. I mean, it was still
that's lame.
It was still kind of cool, but it wasn't what I was expecting. So I was kind of like, meh, okay. And then of course I went looking for like a place to eat, but of course it was West Virginia, like almost 10 years ago. And they've been going at that point in time, they were particularly in a really bad place. So I ended up having to go across to Kentucky to find a place to eat.
It's rough down there.
Yeah, it's really bad down there. Any last thoughts, guys, before we wrap this up?
Absolutely heinous, absolutely crazy. The fact that she just kept trying to replace child after child after child after child after child and repeating the same cycle of abuse and, losing said child. The fact that was able to go on for so long blows my mind.
Yeah, the state failed her children over and over again.
Right. And that's probably my takeaway from this case is fucking prosecute abusers.
Yes, 100%. And
if we can identify a sexual abuser of minors and we are not immediately taking action and putting them somewhere where they will no longer hurt anyone, then we are failing.
Yeah, especially when you have at least one, if not more, of her first children taken away from her within the first year of their lives because of abuse, and then to have a daughter show up bleeding from the vagina, and you're not
Like just so many ways that we have failed these children.
Yeah, so many. And so like in the end, Sherry's responsible for Sherry. And I'm not saying she didn't come from abuse, because she did, but every step of the way, the system failed them all the way down to Vera and Willadine. Who knows how many more people have been hurt and abused by her children since this event.
Yes, it's like these generational traumas repeat themselves, and they have to be stopped.
I'm certainly not a lawyer. I don't know the law. I'm not sure what they can and can't do sometimes, especially if they don't have 100% proof.
Right. And it's just like, it's a shame that these are the cases and the victims are children. And so what do they get but a public defender? And under our criminal system, a public defender is not going to have as many resources and not going to be able to protect as much. And, it's a real shame. It's just a real shame who gets justice. And
agreed.
Under our system, just is fucked.
Yeah, but I mean, the other side of this is this particular family is not exactly rich, so they wouldn't be able to afford a good lawyer.
Right.
But it doesn't, and you and I have had a discussion like this similarly, in the past where, the abuse has happened. You can't undo the abuse.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, it's just about justice. And I feel that Vera Jo has not received any justice.
Absolutely
really.
The fuck not.
No, she needs it.
Yeah. Like obviously the people that actually physically killed her were in jail, but they're just the final link in a long chain.
They're not the cause.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Sucks. Fucking sucks.
I'm sorry that I ruined your night's sleep.
That's okay. I'm going to have like 4 more margaritas and maybe then I'll feel better.
All right, guys. Well, we'll meet up again next week. Thanks everybody for listening again. I know this was a rough one if you made it all this far, but join us.
If you made it to the end, shoot us a comment. Let us know that you're the strongest one of all.
Yes, in fact, I'll even add a note on the Spotify. Instead of it's just what did you think of this episode? It'll be, did you make it to the end, you effing badass, or something.
Yeah,
for real.
I like
for real.
it. Yep.
Let them know that they're strong if they made it.
Well, thank you guys again. I am Janus Dead.
I'm Jameson Dead.
And I'm Joyous Dead.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye.